Okay, thank you. Well, this is a panel, but I think that everybody here could have something to say. So what we need now is to hear voices we haven't heard before. So please, Alizé Glaser, where is she? Would you come to answer some questions? Thank you. And Hubert, because Alizé cannot come without Hubert. Donc, as figurative designers, we have complex designer and special material designer. You know Alizé's works. Matthew Green, we didn't hear his voice. Where is he? Come, please, Matthew. He's a figurative designer also from many years, and I discovered with his display really how amazing are his models. And also Michal Kosmulski, a new tessellation designer. He's a strong man here in the panel. Yes. Alessandra Lamio, who is a great woman star, especially in Spain after the exhibition Mujeres de Papel. That exhibition was led by Alessandra and Daniela Carboni. And the point is that she's designing tessellations as well as figurative models, and geometric models. So it's very interesting. And also we need another geometric designer. She's a lady, famous lady, Christiane Betens, alias Melisande. Thanks for coming, Christiane, from Switzerland. And also she created the project Origami for the People. This is a way to spread origami, so very interesting. So we have many different people, interesting, isn't it? And we need also an origami god. And accepting our craziness, please Dave Brill, come and help us. Okay. And loud applause, please. Thank you. Okay, well, I have to say also, it is not a secret, but we have...
We need a special chair for
Thank you.
you have a chair?
Thank you, thank you. And please, please, please. If it's perhaps a bit alone in the center, it would be better, no? No? Okay. And one is missing because we are here in an origami community. We need events. We need opportunities to be together, to meet, to exchange ideas. We need community builders. And please, Ilan, come with us. Also as a tessellation designer. Okay. Well, this is the beginning now. We also have, I have to tell, it's a secret, some people in the audience that we are volunteering to help us if we are too shy to speak, but it will not happen. Okay. So, we are talking about art, aren't we? About creation. If it's okay, about art, about creation, about inspiration. All the things are totally mysterious. We don't understand anything about it. But it exists. It is living. We want to encourage. So we are going to exchange some questions. First, here we are together, but about creation, do we need to be alone? Do we need quiet moments, silent moments? Is it really important for you? Can you create if you are not alone? In fact, do you need this stage, this step? Well, who first? Matthew, thank you. Welcome.
I've done some creating alone in solitude, but also I find it helpful to be with other friends who are doing origami. You know, we meet at my apartment every week, some friends for origami night, and that's where I've done some good creating, because it's helpful to be able to bounce ideas off of them. Or I'm working on something and I might say, hey, does this look anything like what I think it's supposed to look like? You know, what does this look like to you? And if they say, you know, it's a giraffe and it's supposed to be an elephant, then obviously it's not good. So I find creating with other people, especially other people who are doing origami at the same time, is helpful for me, and it's inspiring.
Okay, both of them.
Yeah, I do some alone, but more, I think being with people at some point in the process, at least, is important.
Okay. Alizé, please. Yes.
Yeah, for me, it's more, I like to search for the inspiration than to be alone in a very calm environment. So with classical music or with in the nature, to hear the nature. And then I can show it to someone who say me what he think, but not when I do the process. And then I can change it again, but when I am more in... people can be here, but I don't have to hear them or to hear noise. Or so it's completely different.
Okay, Dave, please.
Yeah, for me, solitude's really important. It's interesting because I have another parallel creative activity, which is I'm a painter, and I used to go to an evening class to learn, and then it was fairly quiet and peaceful, but there were other people around, and what was useful then was that the teacher, who was very inspirational, he used to make comments directed at one person, but the comments were able to be heard by everybody. So everybody learnt from one person's successes or failures. And then the evening class finished, and I joined an art group, and that was infuriating because there was so much discussion, gossiping about the price of fish and what time does the supermarket open, and people chatting about the grandchildren. I found that completely infuriating. And I have a regular meeting with two friends who are also painters, and we go out on a Tuesday, and we don't really communicate about what we're doing at all. We work completely separately, and I don't want to have a conversation with them when I'm actually working. And certainly in origami terms, I must be alone. And it's interesting. I used to go out to paint with the old Sony Walkman, which was so fashionable. I thought it's going to be helpful to me to paint when I've got music. But I found it a real distraction, so I didn't do that. But when I'm at home working on origami projects, I find music quite useful. But I also find that I don't really need a studio space. I can fold when I'm watching television. So certain influences are helpful, but I think what is important is the common thread with all that. I need to be in complete connection with the material that I'm working on. So distractions are limited. Certain distractions are helpful, but generally I need solitude, yeah.
Can we have another one as such?
I know that I'm old because now I know that I'm not as smart as I was when I was 30 years old. And saying that, I realized that I'm not as sharp as I used to be. I'm not as creative as I used to be. And I realized that the last year or 2 years, when I work with other people, they give me what I lack, which is the seeds of ideas. And then you discuss with them. I came on the train with Ben Goldberger, and I talked to him about how can you make a cube with only 4 parts. Because cube could either be 6, 8, or 12, depending on the corners, edges, or faces. And I wanted to do differently, and I said 4. And by the way, by the moment we arrived to the train station, he already showed me a model that he made. So it wasn't influencing my creativity, but he's here. But this kind of discussion that you talk with someone and you just think of things and then suddenly something happens, I found this much more resourceful in my old days now. And also the book with Dasha is the same. Every time we discuss, something comes up. And so for me, I used to do it all by myself because there was nobody else to speak to in Israel when I was starting 10, 11 years ago. But nowadays, I find it much better to work with people. It's highly inspiring, and it creates those seeds of ideas that then...
I agree with this part because other people for me are essential for the first part of creation process to get inspired. And then I have an idea. It's possible also with not origami people, talking with a different kind of people, other artists of different field. And then when I start actually to fold the paper, I'm alone, but I could be alone also with a lot of people around because I'm totally focused with a lot of endorphins because it's so I'm so happy to creating something new, and so it's the real moment when I'm folding something new. It's I am alone even with a lot of people, even if I'm talking with other people, but it's something private. But the other people are really essential to be inspired before and after. So it's a mix of the two.
For me, at the beginning of a process, I need to be alone because often my ideas, maybe it's age like Ilan, my ideas are a bit loose around. But I cannot really explain what is my idea, so I need to work a bit in my brain to gather the information, and once I have something emerging, I can speak with some other people and get some input. But I think the first draft, I need to make it alone to have the things in my brain, and later I appreciate to have influences. And also, when I say alone, I can fold on an airplane or on a train, just if I can focus a bit on my things and then speak with other people, it helps a lot. And if I may just say about the origami for the people activity, I'm just back from town, and if you go to the first roundabout in direction of town, you can see some of the stars. And if you go in the park behind the Alia Feria Palace, on the Glorieta Gazebo, at the homeless encampment, there are also some stars on the pillars, so you can check the installations. There will be picture, but I didn't have time to post.
Because it happens to me to be influenced by other people, even if I didn't recognize it. Because, for example, one time we was at Origami Dutch convention, and I never designed a star before. I usually am not really interested to creating stars and boxes, and but I was in this atmosphere of star and boxes that was in the air, and I start creating a star, but without the desire to do it. It was just something that was in me without my desire to do it. So it's weird.
Okay. Next will be you.
Well, can you design models alone? In my country, there are very few folders, so I have designed quite a few models before I even met another folder physically. So of course you can, but I would say having other people giving comments or tips or just speaking to them can help. For instance, just before this panel, I was speaking with Ben, who's over there, the same Ben. And just by talking to him, an idea I had just unlocked, and now I think I can do it. So just by speaking to this guy. So go speak to Ben.
Michel.
Okay, I enjoy working alone, but I do like to get in touch with other people for inspiration. This may include actual live people or their work. Both are fine. So I think it depends on the stage, but at the stage that I come to actually design a model and fold it, I prefer to be alone and be able to fully focus on what I'm doing.
Well, this is almost finished. One person is missing in this panel because I've forgotten. It is an artist who exhibited at Emos Museum in Non-Toledano. Please come and tell us our answer. Please, thank you.
So, my inspiration is have some. My method of design is of some ways. So my first way, I love to play with the paper and play with the shapes of the paper, and it made me something, and I try to continue it and just play it with the paper and get something I like.
So during this moment, you are alone?
And sometimes I love to participate with a design challenge, like we have a group on Facebook, and we have a subject that gives you an inspiration to design something in this subject, as it's very inspire you.
D'accord. And after going back to solitude, to be alone, and go back to the community, both?
Yes.
Okay. Super.
Tell them the name of the group if somebody still haven't heard about it. Maybe it's good to say. What is the name of the group?
The name of the group you belong to in internet? On Facebook?
Origami Joust, I think. And
The Jutes. Joust.
If you want to know more about it, you can ask Raphael, who's in the back.
Yes. Hello, Raphael. Welcome here. So we have Facebook groups. This is a community. We have real meetings in real life.
And also a source that inspired me, that's the art world. That's I love to artists that it's not origami, that's like painter or sculpture, and it gave me ideas and way of thinking that I try to do that in the origami.
This is very important to keep being opened.
Yes.
Yes. And this is...
Yeah, so I was going to say, so I think that for me, I think it's important, for me at any rate, and I suggest it could be for you, to have other creative activities. So in my case, it's painting, but I also try to play the piano very, very badly. I try to play better, but at the moment I play badly. But I think you learn lessons. You learn lessons not in your other creative activities. In my case, painting and trying to play music. You learn lessons which apply not only in the field that you're working on at the moment, but in those other activities. So my painting teacher, immensely inspirational, because he simplified the massively complicated task of painting. And he was full of simple little maxims. For example, he said, unless you know what you want, how will you know when you've got it? So you have to it's so simple. And the other thing that is a big inspiration, another lesson he said, never concentrate on detail. If you're painting, you don't concentrate on the glint in the eye or the individual hair on the subject's head. You're looking at the whole image, and keep that in mind at all times. We get seduced, we're trained from childhood to look at tiny little things and be fascinated by them, but they're not important. It's the big picture that you need to keep in mind at all times. So I think that, for me, the big message is to receive your influences from everywhere, but if you have other creative outlets, they can cross-pollinate.
You agree with? And just a last word by Inon. Do you have another artistic activity besides origami?
Lately, I like to try new art form like sculpture.
Sculpture. Okay.
And a little painting.
Yes.
And that's very inspire me to go with other fields and try new technique and new idea, and it's very interesting to get idea. It's combining with more art forms.
Thank you. And Alize wanted to start.
Just about the details, for me, it's more, I like to focus on some details and to remove some other. And sometimes it's not the whole picture. You have to have the whole picture, but to keep some details that are more important, like to make it bigger, to make the whole picture more characterized. And so I like some details too.
Some, only some
Yeah,
details.
some, not the whole details.
But the lesson that I learned was that at first you establish the big picture, and only when that is established clearly, that is the time when you can think about introducing small details. Like the base and the shape. Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
What about you? You haven't answered any.
No, it's okay. I'm enjoying my time. I think there are two sorts of solitudes: happy solitude and unhappy solitude. So we need both. We need quiet times to find in ourselves, to let appear something we didn't expect it, and we need to meet people to share the joy, this joy. Unhappy solitude is when something is missing. If you don't miss anything, solitude is happy, but it cannot last forever. You know? Okay, so it's great because you answered already some questions. I have to talk. No problem. Feel free. In the audience, something to add, something to ask? Oui, Arsenie?
I'm sorry, it's just too much fuss with the microphones. It's just a bit. So the impression I got is that solitude does not, it's not important for solitude. It doesn't matter whether there are people around you or there are no people around you. So solitude would be some kind of special state of mind. Is it? I mean, just, don't you think so?
For me, that depends. Some people say that they can be with people and be alone in their mind, but if I hear noise, for me, I am not alone. So that depends of the way of working of each person, I think.
Okay. Jonathan? We had a nice lecture from Jonathan.
I want to say that sometimes I like to fold when I'm listening to somebody talking. For example, I could have been folding, and maybe and sometimes it's good because I don't want to make noise, so I make a very few folds, not to make noise, and sometimes it gives a really good model.
Okay. A voice we didn't hear before.
My name is Michael Shannon. Just speaking about solitude and sort of state of mind, growing up I did a lot of sketching, I did a lot of origami, and I noticed, maybe like some other artists, that when you are in extremes of emotion, whether you are extremely angry, extremely happy, extremely sad, that's when the creative juices really, really started flowing for me. And so it kind of carried over into origami when I'm feeling maybe not necessarily isolated, but there's something in my life that's just driving me crazy. Perhaps it's an outlet to realize whatever shape I'm creating in origami. It just helps me work through those emotions. So I think there's a bit of solitude as well as your emotional state that factors into how creative you're going to be.
I share that too, because I've had a number of occasions in my life where I've been through a really difficult patch, or there's some what should I, confrontation or some dissonance, and at some stage that resolves one way or another, and you feel you're happy that that particular problem has resolved, not in origami or any some relationship or some argument or something like that. Something's gone wrong, but it's over and it's finished. I've very often found that if I've been working on some origami project around that time, at the same time as the resolution of the conflict, my problem or my challenge in origami has resolved itself too. And sometimes, and I can't explain why or how, the result is particularly satisfying. And that's a big satisfaction. So out of sort of a discord, there comes accord. And it's very satisfying.
I have a question related for everybody. Are you more creative when you are sad or happy when you are in a good mood? Because I think it could be really different. So if some of you want.
Alors, how many
When I'm sad, I eat chocolate. I don't go and fold, just...
How many people in this room prefer being happy for creating? I will not count. A lot. A lot. How many people prefer to be sad? Some are preferring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe something about that.
Welcome, David Gâche-Papier.
So I don't know if it's me, but I find that I get desperate when I'm folding.
Show your desperate face, please.
And I don't know what my desperate face is like. I don't go in the mirror, that's too tough. But seriously, I usually start folding with an idea in mind. I have this picture that I want to achieve, and probably half of the time I go into what I call desperation valley, and it's really, really deep.
And alone?
Oh, it's very lonely. There's but trusting the process, I found that I usually can crawl out of it on my own, and then I get a satisfactory model out of it. But I do find it a really, really strong challenge to make it through that. And I have no idea whether this is me, and whether I should consult, or whether this is something that you can also relate to.
Okay. Thanks for your contribution. Well, many questions have been answered. How many times is left?
As many as you need.
So we will not eat.
Yeah.
No? Yes, please. Coming from South America? Mexico. Introduce yourself, please.
Mexico is North America.
Yeah. I'm a Frenchie.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Daniela. I just wanted to point out something about... I raised my hand when you were asking what you rather fold when you're sad or happy. I prefer both, but I chose sad because it's not that I chose to fold when I'm sad. I have found out that folding when I'm really sad helps me convert that sadness into something positive. And that's what I like. So when I'm really, really sad, I know I can go to origami and transform that into something really nice and positive. And actually, yeah, it's like a power there. So.
And truly, you are encouraging creativity, telling this to us. Thank you. Okay. Something more to tell? Yes. Francisca. Introduce yourself.
Can I make it short? I'm the one who drew Ilan's book. I think it is important to know where you get your energy from. I think most artists and most origamists are people that gain their energy from being alone, from being calm. But there are other people that get their energy from being with people all the time. So they need people around you. You have to know which one you are to know when you're getting into your zone of creativity.
Lee, hello.
Just to pick up on what you just said, so I get my energy from being alone. If I spend too much time with people, I'm not a nice person to be with, and I have to go off to my cave. But people ask me who are not folders, not origamists, about origami. Why do you do origami? And I do it because it's art, but actually the reason I've pursued it and become okay at it is because of the community. Because I draw my own introvert energy from being alone, but the community gives me a lot of energy and sustains me and gives me new directions and makes me happy. So it's a strange combination of the two, and I don't know if other people on the panel get that same combination.
I just wanted to say that maybe we are different type of creators, that I am sometimes too concentrated on detail. For example, as Ilan mentioned, we are working on his book. And for me, it's a big inspiration to have something in my hand and maybe find a way to enhance it for myself. That, for example, to find a better way to lock the modules together, or find some kind of improvement for me, for what my aesthetics or what I want from the model, which is maybe different from what Ilan wanted. But that I am not able to work on the big scale, but I can concentrate and I can maybe improve detail. So I'm feeling like more like technician who can find maybe good solution for some smaller problem, but sometimes it's difficult for me to see in the beginning where I am going. So I'm more like floating.
I think it's important to say that there isn't really a right or a wrong way. I think it's what works for you. And this lesson that I learned about not concentrating on detail, it's not absolute. It's not an absolute rule. If it works for you, then that's good. If you want to concentrate on the detail, well, that's fine. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to create. There's no right or wrong way to learn to make art. So it's whatever works for you. So I don't think it's so important.
No, but I just wanted to say that it works differently for me. That I feel like my ability is sometimes really to improve. I can't build from the beginning. I would not have the ideas which I see in Ilan's work, for example, but I have ability to maybe find the final touch to make it work. It's just very different. I don't know. I can't do animals. I can do tessellations, but it is like working in smaller, because for tessellation you need some kind of something what you can repeat, and it is like smaller thing, and then you build something bigger. You can then combine different geometrical patterns to create different things, but it's just different way of process, I think.
Okay. In my case, the main thing for creativity is time. So it's very hard to find any moment for creativity, for making anything in real life.
with serious job, care of a house, garden, and 3 children alone. So please, young people who have a lot of time during your studies, be creative before you well cannot.
I would say that if you have a real spark of creativity, everything else pales into insignificance. And the house cleaning and the shopping and all the essentials of life become unimportant. And so
Yeah. Oh, finally, I lost my thoughts. I wanted to talk 2 or 3 times, but I'll try to synthesize. For me, I guess that creativity is nothing. Or inspiration is not not a moment that you choose to be creative. I guess that you have to be with attention to what's surrounding you, and sometimes for me it works like this: that some image, some line, it can trigger your imagination, and from there you can start to create. It's not something that I decide that tonight I'm going to be creative or I will be inspiration. And one thing that I also saw when I'm creating or designing is that I'm never alone, but I'm always thinking to myself, and I create an internal dialogue that I'm always making questions and answering, so I don't feel alone when I'm alone. So I'm with my ideas and my thoughts. I don't know if it helps.
Alone is not inactive.
Something about time, because for me it's the opposite. Sometimes I have a lot of time and I'm not so creative, but when I have a few time, I'm really busy, I feel a urge to create, and so for me the creative impulse is a lot stronger when I have totally no time. And and maybe I wake up in the middle of the night, say, oh, I have to fold this stuff. And so I want to ask you, are you more creative when you have a lot of time or where you have no time at all?
I think for me, this time point is really important. In the past year and a half, 2 years, I've had more work than I'd had in a very long time. And that's in one way that community, that being with people helps me be creative. Because if I'm alone, it's hard for me sometimes to give myself permission to take the time to do the origami. It's like, no, I have to answer my emails, I have to catch up on this, I have to catch up on that, and I've got that. But I say, no, my friends are coming over to do origami. You know, so I'm like, okay, I'm here to fold. And now I have permission in a way for myself to take the time to be creative and not to feel like I have to be working. So I'm a freelancer, so I don't have a schedule. And I work from home, and so it's just so easy for me to just keep working, you know, and dinner comes, I eat dinner, and I just keep working, you know. But when people come who are doing origami, it stimulates me and gives me that opportunity.
So we have seen that this question cannot be answered alone by itself. It is connected to so many questions. I suppose that if you were continue to creating, connected with Arseny lectures yesterday, it is because one day somebody encouraged you. You cannot encourage yourself all the time. Never? Joao Shaura, the self-made origami designer.
That is a constant process. You have to be always looking, always researching, and you can feed yourself with other source of things, and that's something that you can do by yourself alone.
Thank you. I was imagining this process of like inspiration and getting ideas is like pushing a cart on a railway. So it has no engine and you are the only one who pushes it. So you can push it real hard, jump on it, and you will go some way. But then it will stop eventually. And then you have to get off again, push it again, jump in, and again and again and again.
Alors, last question, because you succeeded in answering almost the others, but one. Have you ever been stopped by problem impossible to solve? Problem impossible to solve. And lack of inspiration. And how did you clear the obstacle?
I think the simple answer to that is leave it alone. And let your subconscious sometimes solve the problem. And I think, actually, it's a bit of a contradiction because I'm going through a pretty fallow period as in origami terms just at the moment. I haven't done anything new for absolutely ages. And I was going to say, don't be worried about it, but I'm beginning to be a bit worried about it.
You can try an origami joust.
Well, I would think that obstacles are different for every folders. In my case, I design almost exclusively from box-pleated models. So essentially, if I want to fold something, I probably can, regardless of the subject. So in my case, I would have two kinds of challenges. So the first one is a technical challenge. So if I have an idea in mind, but I don't know how I want to do it, how I want to approach it, so is the head in the middle of the paper or the corner or something like that? So in that case, I would say most of the times, thinking outside the box works for me. For instance, the last model I designed was, I've been wanting to attempt a Native American totem for a long time. But with classic box pleating, I mean, I didn't really know how I want to approach it. And lately, I've been doing flat landscapes in box pleating. So I thought, for a totem, I could just make it flat, like a tessellation, and then curve it in a cylinder, and it works. So think outside the box definitely works. And the other type of challenge, of obstacle I find is that since I can fold pretty much anything I want, is deciding what I want to fold. So for instance, if I want to fold, I don't know, the usual example I give is a werewolf. How do I do it? Do I want, what kind of details do I want on the werewolf? And in that case, there are many ways to approach that problem of what you want to fold. So either you can wait for a spark, that sometimes helps. Or you can force your way, try to do something, try to do the idea you want anyways, and eventually it will unlock to something else. Or speak to people, or go to challenges. Sometimes you can get a better idea of what you want to fold.
When I'm stuck, I'm making a book. And you can understand that I'm stuck for the last 3 years. And I just thought about it now. I realized that I just stopped making new models, and I'm just trying to enjoy the old models that I already did. And I moved my creative energy from one level to another. And as you probably know, I'm more into the political sides of the origami. I'm trying to, you call me a community builder, and this is one of the things that is happening, like the CFC and Origami Israel and so on. And I realized that I just moved one level higher, or maybe even two levels higher. And I just changed my field of creation. And on a very small scale, when I'm stuck with a model, I think I usually do what you do. I just put it aside and wait for the time to come. Or maybe I ask Ben that sometimes, or Gadi or whatever. But I think I just changed my field of creativity. I moved aside and I said, okay, because to be honest, I'm also a bit bored by making just yet another tessellation. I've done quite a lot. I have 2 books almost. I can fill 2 books almost. So it's a very deep question, by the way. I'll stop here. You want to say?
Okay. Well, when I'm stuck with something really difficult, I often ask a suggestion. For example, I go to Alessandro and say, please explain me how to do, and usually spend a lot of time explaining to me and teaching to me, and I learn a lot, and then I say, but that was not my question. So it's the solution, but I was searching something different, and so maybe I use that solution for something different after. And so it's really interesting, and to him or to other people. And so usually the answers are useful for a different model, not for that one. Because at the end, I just like to talk with other people and to find my own solution. But I have huge boxes in my house with an unfinished model waiting for their moment. And so it's about.
And when I'm stuck, usually I put the model aside, and sometimes it comes back with an inspiration, and sometimes it goes to the box of unfinished models. And I think for the inspiration, when you work with geometrical patterns, it's so easy to find them all. Everywhere you go, you can find something. Every place I travel, I bring picture of this and that things, and it gives me inspiration for years, probably.
I've had quite a few cases where I started something and couldn't finish, or couldn't even give it a good start. I just barely started, and my methods of dealing with this is just to not care. Because, first of all, I'm not doing this as a job. It's a hobby, so if I was forcing myself to do a hobby, it would be a bit weird. So, and the other thing is, I have actually too many ideas, not too few. So I have a huge backlog of drafts, models that I started and which are at a preliminary stage of design, and which I can just take out of the box and continue working on them. So if I get stuck on one thing, I just put it aside, and I've had models which I started and finished in more than a year, and they just lie somewhere, and it's okay as long as I have this space. So I just work on something else, and then usually at some point something clicks, and I say, okay, now I can go back to this and finish, and then usually it goes very quickly. So it just takes some time to kind of get to the right stage. I think it's similar to what Dave said.
Yeah, for me, I have a big box with a lot of started models, and often I forgot them completely. And sometimes I say I have to clean this place, so I look at it and, oh, I have done that and that, so I can combine them. And it's here that the inspiration comes back. So it's good not to throw them away, but to keep them, I think. And sometimes when you look at model with completely different techniques, that can give you idea for something that you have started long time ago and to change it. So
I deal with difficulties like that differently depending on the circumstances. Like sometimes, like recently, I was trying to come up with something, and I just like kept running into a wall. I couldn't find it, and then I just kind of stopped caring, kind of like you were saying, but I didn't stop folding. So I was like, yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just going to try this. You know, just stop thinking so much and just try it, and don't be so nervous about, is it going to work, is it not going to work? Just do something, you know? Ended up working out just fine. It was just relaxing helped. Sometimes also it's a matter, I think, of budgeting my creative energy. Some people just seem to be overflowing with creative energy. You can just do 1,000 things at a time, and that's not me. So sometimes if it's just not working out, maybe, like pretty much everyone has mentioned, sometimes you just set the thing aside and wait for the creative energy to recharge, or for me to be less busy with something else that's using that energy. And the other solution that sometimes is you just change what you're trying to do, you know? So there's one model I was trying to do, which is a typical pre-Columbian statue, and is common in a lot of archaeological sites in Mexico, is chocmol, which is a statue that's sitting down and looking to the side. And I was trying to design a chocmol, and then I started kind of with the head, which is something I often do. I often focus on one part of the model. Sometimes it's a really strange detail like the nose or something, and then I get an idea for that, and then the rest of the model comes around that. So I said, well, I'm going to start with the head. And then I did the head, and like, I'm not sure how to finish the body. But the head's great. So I just left it head of Chacmo, problem solved, you know? So you can redimension the question, and, you know, you can answer it a different way.
So for me, when I have an idea and I not completely happy with the result, I put it in the side and try to think of a different approach of kind of present a model or different solution that can I can be happy with it. And I think sometimes put it on the side and back it after time, it can give you new ideas and new approach.
Just on the topic, one of the origami activity that we propose during mountain folding is to bring your own unfinished or filed model and teach to the other and try together to find a solution or to finish them in some way, mixing the different styles and technique. But we will talk tomorrow about mountain folding. So.
One thing I want to add regarding obstacles, sometimes I want to create something, but I just don't have the idea of what I want to fold, or I'm stuck in some technical details. So whenever that happens to me, one solution that almost always works is to go back. So open up your box of models of your drafts, rework them. You can also choose one of your older models that you know has a flaw or something and try to perfect it. And another thing that's also always useful is to keep a list of what you want to, of ideas you've gotten over the years. So if you have an idea, write it down, and eventually you can open up that list again and say, oh, I have thought about that, now I think I want to fold it. So there you go.
Last one.
And last but not least.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to add is to enjoy your errors. Because sometimes if you're trying hard to do something, maybe you're doing the wrong thing and you should just let the paper guide you. So for example, my simple elephant, one of the few animals that I've designed, was supposed to be a tessellation. So I started with some... yes, I started with some irregular triangle twists, and it didn't quite work out, but I thought, okay, this looks like an elephant's ear, and it ended up as an elephant, so yeah.
Do you want to summarize?
Thank you. It's impossible to have 1.1.2 in the right order, and it's better. Thanks. Thank you very much for your ideas.
Yeah, we are finished. It's lunchtime.